is what to expect at NEM. We got a veteran panel to share their experiences about NEM, the trade show. And basically, the purpose of the presentation is just to have a panel of experts who have already been there and done that. And they're going to give you some tips and tricks and just answer some questions that you might have at this point. Now, this is uh, the fifth webinar out of a series of webinars that we did specific to this trade show. So great partnership we have with the trade show with the Small Business Development Center, where we partner helping to give you guys the best experience possible by getting you the knowledge you would need before the trade show to make the trade show the best it could be. So again, this is the fifth. We are recording this. So if you come in and you're not on mute, try to put yourself on mute. We put this on YouTube as well so that you can watch it later on. So some of you folks might be watching this later, but we do have a live. Oh, hopefully we got a mute on that one. Okay.
Next, when you want a statement.
Now, if you're just joining, remember just put yourself on mute. If you have questions, which they will come up, please feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll put some stuff in the chat. So if you're new to Zoom, the chat is going to be a little blinking button at the bottom where you can feel free to enter stuff in. If it's a general question, great. We're gonna read it off and answer it for the whole group. If it's a very detailed, specific question to your particular circumstances, please don't feel bad about emailing the SBDC, and we can get that information to New England Made if it's a question about that. But we want to make sure we answer your questions, and we are doing this to the benefit of everyone. Okay. So my name is Peter Harriman. I work for the Maine Small Business Development Center since 2015. There are 12 to 14 advisors who work with me throughout the state. We're a no-cost confidential business advising for new and existing businesses. So it's not just for new businesses. Half of our clients are existing as well. There is Zoom, there's telephone. So that has definitely broadened our horizons. But almost anywhere within the state, within a reasonable drive time, you're going to find an office if you still want a one-on-one meeting. So we're here. We cover the entire state, and we do that by partnering with the University of Southern Maine, Northern Maine Development Commission, and the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments. I mentioned the three organizations because when you request advising, you're going to get an email from one of these organizations. Like mine, if you see in the picture, peter.harriman@maine.edu. So look at your spam. Sometimes our emails go to spam, but when you request advising, we get back to you within 24 hours of the 48 hours business days. What we do, again, new businesses and existing businesses, we do business planning, we do growth strategy, we do buying and selling, basically anything pertaining to business, even some of the new stuff that comes up, right? During the COVID, there was the PPP, the EIDL, there's grants that come up now and then. So what we try to do is stay on top of that. So the Maine paid family leave, all the topics that are happening to business, we try to help you with that. And we help you with the broad base of just what is a business? How do I start a business? Should I start a business? And more. Now, we can't provide legal guidance. We're not lawyers, we're not accountants. So if you ask a question that's legal, we might have to refer you to a lawyer or an accountant. So who do we serve? Basically, anyone who has a small business. And for the SBA small business size standards, that's pretty broad. We help for-profits. They have to be Maine-based. We help all industries. And there are some exceptions there. We can't help nonprofits, and we can't help federally legal, illegal ventures, so to say. I'll leave it at that. So how would you request advising from us? You can go right to our website, and right in the top right corner, there's a request advising button, and you can fill out the registration. And again, we get back to you very quickly, but our email will be from one of those three organizations. Or you can catch us on YouTube, right? And you can check our playlist out and check the specific webinars concerning this, the 5 webinars that we did, or you can look at our other playlists with our other topics, and you can just subscribe, and then you won't miss anything, right? Now, I know you didn't want to hear about me. You wanted to hear about the show, right? So on with the show. We have a moderator, Stefa. And I can't even go into introducing her. She is a wonderful person. I love her. This is I pulled this from their website to show the humor that they have. Everyone at the show has been wonderful. So I very approachable. So I am going to turn it over to you guys so you can go on and introduce the panel.
Thank you so much, Peter. That right back at you. We love the SBDC. You do such amazing work helping all of these small businesses. And whether they're in the beginning phases or they're moving along, new challenges or whatever, you guys just do such great work in helping businesses grow and meet their challenges. So right back at you. But today I'm super stoked because we have Alan, Joy, and Michael with us today. They'll introduce themselves a little bit more. But this is my favorite one of the series because we really get to hear people who are maybe a few steps further down the road than somebody on the call that might be listening right now. So the format of this webinar will be, in the beginning, we'll chat a little bit about their background, maybe a little bit about their business, some of their operational challenges, and then we'll jump into the trade show part. But I know each one of these guys has an amazing story. They've been through the ups and downs, and whatever stage of the business they're at, there's always a new challenge. So I can't wait to hear how they've addressed some of them and are ready to share that expertise with you. So let me give you a quick intro. I know they'll share a little bit more, but we have Alan Winnick from the Connecticut area. He's been 25 years designing and building unusual tide clocks, and he's been with NEM for about 12 years. And I have to share a story. One of my kiddos, when they were younger, we would let them pick out something from NEM in the cash and carry. And one of my sons, his favorite thing was Alan's tide clock because it was so magical. So I know it's a favorite in our house. Joy from Center Street Soap, also from the Connecticut area, makes handmade artisan soap, which and is a top level merchandiser. Her booth is like the best. So I hope anybody on this call swings by her booth when they're at the show. And finally, Michael Ailes is the president of Naturally Uncommon, New Hampshire-based personal care, and the owner of Sam's Natural and Mackenzie's Fisherman e-commerce and wholesale brands, and also a contract manufacturer. And I'll let him get into that a little bit more. But these people are super smart, so let's get into it. So if each one of you wouldn't mind, and starting with you, Alan, how long have you been in business, and what was the biggest challenge when you started?
Well, I have been in business about 25 years, which is when I invented my unusual tide clock. And the biggest challenge at first, I mean, first of all, let me tell you, I didn't design this thing to sell it. I designed it because I thought it would be cool to have one. And it's a tide clock that has a mechanically animated picture in it in which the tide actually rises and falls in sync with your local tide, just to let you know what it is that I'm talking about. We lived by the ocean, and we do live by the ocean, and I wanted to have something that had this unusual feature to it. I'm an inventor, and it just means I have a restless mind. Anyway, I built one of these for myself. I thought it was kind of cool, and then I started giving them away as gifts. People started to ask me if they could buy one so they could give it as gifts, and so little by little, a business was born. Biggest challenge, and I know that many of you who are starting businesses and are just dipping your toe in the water here have day jobs, and the biggest problem that I had was to split my time as between my day job and the new venture. Uh, Beyond that, uh, since I invented something, I had to climb that inventor's hill of prototype to production model. That's a steep hill. I won't go into the details of it, but it changes the way you you look at the world, and it changes the way you look at the products you have in your house as well. So that was a big steep climb. Anyway, started the business about 25 years ago, and we've been growing ever since. And now we sell them not only all through New England, but worldwide.
Awesome. Thank you, for that, Alan. Joy, how about you?
Hey, hi everybody. My name is Joy. I'm from Center Street, Soap Co. in Connecticut, and I've been in business for about 6 years. I started making handmade soaps because I enjoyed handmade soaps, and like Alan, it wasn't meant to for something for me to sell. But as I began creating more and more new soaps and products, I began to realize it was very expensive, and decided to start selling my soaps at markets. And what I discovered is that, I had a really good response to that. And so then I, went along into wholesale. But I would say at the beginning of starting my business, some of the biggest challenges were how to be creative and also profitable at the same time. And profitability, you have to also include in there is your time. So one of my biggest challenges was to pay myself. So it wasn't about just, getting enough money to continue to create new fun products. It was also about paying myself for my time. I wished I'd done that earlier.
Whoops. Whoops. Joy, Joy got hit on mute. We had a little bit of a cliffhanger there. Yeah, let me see if we can get you.
You hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay.
Awesome.
What part of the cliff were we on?
We were on you paying yourself, which I think is such a huge thing for people starting out, is leaving out that cost of labor.
Yeah, so your time. So I wished I'd learned that lesson sooner than I did. And I'm still, trying to grow my pay as we go along here. But I really think it's really important to start that right away. Even if it's just a little bit, and increase that in small increments over time. Because if you're not paying yourself, then what are we in business for? So that early on was would be my biggest challenges.
Right. And Michael, how about you? Whoops, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a little bit different in that I acquired a business that was started by the original owners in 2011, and I found the business in 2016. They had taken it as far as they could based on their abilities and capital. It was very small at the time, but I recognized it had great policies and practices and generally a good core to build around. Today, the business is much larger. We're as much a private label contract manufacturer as we are the owners of two e-commerce brands. And that benefits everyone because we have things that we do for our e-commerce that we can share with our private label customers, and private label customers may have us do things for them that benefit our business. For me, the biggest challenge in buying the business was overcoming the culture and some of the practices of the prior business. I can't tell you how many times I heard, well, that's the way we've always done it, when I asked about any aspect of the business. And that was frustrating for me. And some of that we were able to overcome through the years. And quite honestly, some of that was only overcome through changes in key staffing positions, which is something I didn't want to do, fearing the loss of experience and knowledge. But in the end, almost 100% of the time, I found that the benefit of getting rid of some people who were not contributing to the culture that I wanted to build was very, very beneficial. And I never regretted it after the fact.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. In 2 or 3 sentences, what do you wish somebody had told you about running a business before you started? Alan?
I wish that someone had told me how patient I was going to have to be before building enough momentum to actually make a profit. Now, paying yourself is absolutely important because we have a tendency to devalue our own labor when we're doing it for ourselves, and we kind of look to the product as the thing that generates the money. But we actually generate the money. I wish someone had told me that it was going to take years,
Yeah.
in my case, years before the company would actually be profitable.
Yeah. Great. Alan. Joy, how about you?
I wish somebody would have told me that you can't be everything to everyone. And by that, I mean,
Mm,
just because, you have a handful of people that love a coffee soap or a tea tree soap, you have to like hone in on what your most profitable products are and just go for those. And one of the things that applies very much to my business is that they have something called the 80-20 rule in retail, where 20% of your products are 80% of your revenues. And that is that applies to my business. So just remember, you can't be everything to everyone. If there's something that 10 people maybe order, once a year, just let go of it and move on to things that are more profitable for you.
awesome. And how about you, Michael?
I think one of the key things is that you will chronically underestimate overhead and expenses. The way I think about the business sometimes is that the overhead associated with running the business, it is constant, it is certain, and it's ever increasing, while revenues are less certain and always have to be worked very hard at to be earned. So I think, for a lot of people making the transition from a business activity, making and selling something to a full-fledged business, the one thing they really underestimate is the overhead associated with doing that, renting space, hiring staff, providing benefits. All of those things just add up like you can't believe. Even a small subscription to an app, $50 a month, well, that's $600 a year. And for our business, that's a decent customer order. So I think it's the expenses that people don't think about or appreciate when they go into business.
Mm, awesome. Is there anything else anyone would like to add about overcoming those and what you learned from those early struggles?
I'd like to add that another thing about cutting down your products is if you don't enjoy making something, then do what makes you happy. There's some soaps that I just absolutely just couldn't stand the process of. I designed them, they're too intricate. And if I wasn't happy making them, then I just let them go. So that would be some advice I'd give you.
I would say also that, I mean, I'm presuming that most of the people who are tuning in here today have already jumped off the cliff of starting a business. So you're not at the juncture of should I or should I not. You've sort of done it and presumably done a certain amount of homework, I hope. To what I said earlier, I think that it's important to make sure that you have a solid foundation upon which to live while your business is going through the trials and tribulations of startup. Um, you want to be you want to have planned for this. Hopefully, the people in your life are supportive of that, and hopefully, you're financially stable enough that you can see yourself through until this time. That's part of your startup expense, is living expenses while you're getting going.
Mhm. I love to see when people are balancing. I know you mentioned earlier, Alan, it's your challenge of hanging on to that day job as they learn, as they learn and grow the business, because it does give them give a little bit of security instead of having so much pressure beyond, a growing business.
Yes, and I hung on as long as I could, and finally the fork in the road came when I no longer had enough PTO to cover the time I needed to do shows and production and all that. So I had to make a decision,
Mhm,
and well, obviously this, what decision I made.
mhm. That's great. Anything else from you, Michael, that you wanted to chime in before we talked about marketing and sales a bit?
I think we're good.
Terrific, great. So I'll throw this out to whoever would like to share. What's been the most successful in promoting your products?
Start. I would say using personalized emails to engage retail partners. And if we're speaking about, specifically trade sales and trade shows and buyers,
Yeah.
make sure you have an easy to use and professional website. Even if your buyers aren't using that, they're going to use your website and your social media accounts to check your legitimacy. So just make sure those are professional, easy to use, because they will be doing their homework.
There's a lot of stalking that happens in advance. Alan or Michael, anything on your end to that for strategies?
It's very, very important to know your customer. And this was something that was took me a couple of years to learn. And now, if you're selling, you have to know who is going to buy your product, what their demographic is, what their economic status is, where they're likely to live geographically, et cetera, et cetera. If you know that, you've got half the battle right there, knowing who your customer is. You're not flailing around. For me, it took a while to find out who my customer was because I had a product that no one had seen before, as opposed to a more generic product that people are familiar with, and yours is just a version of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we found that I've done other products too in the past. Focus groups are really great, and they should not be conducted by you, and they should not contain anybody who really knows you. So you get
Mm-hmm.
really good results. Focus groups are great and can really shorten that learning curve of who your customer is. Um, Different kinds of advertising are great. The best is free advertising, which of course is part of social media. If you can master that, which I have not. Also is creating some sort of news story in some way or being associated with some sort of local news story, because then you wind up getting free advertising right there. Special interest groups are great. Uh, if you can find a special interest group that's a fan, that's a big base right there. Print advertising is very expensive. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. I don't know if that's just because of what I sell, but I've spent a lot on print advertising over the years, and I don't do any of that anymore. But knowing who your customer is and finding the most expedient way to get to them, face to face is tough. Social media is great. Finding your local paper have a reason to highlight your wonderfulness is great.
Terrific. Michael, how about you?
We've tried a lot of different sales and marketing techniques over the years. I would describe probably 90% of them as being unsuccessful or unsatisfactory in terms of any return that we could measure. So I think about 3 or 4 years ago, with the launch of our most recent e-commerce brand, we decided to put a lot of our energy into just good old-fashioned sampling. As the manufacturer of our product, with a relatively low cost basis, we can put together a very nice sample package for under $10 that goes out to between 40 and 60 qualified leads every single week. Those leads are generated through internet research from our staff. We have people that do that specifically. And we view them as seeds. Some of those seeds germinate immediately. Someone will get a package and contact us based on the sell sheet and cover letter that's included. Some people we hear from 2 and 3 years later. Most are somewhere in between. And when we first started it, we had a very high conversion rate, probably close to 15 or 20%, because at that time it was low-hanging fruit. Everyone we sent it to was in our primary market, and we were a new brand. I think over the years it's probably now closer to 5 to 7%, but it's still a very effective method to put products into someone's hand so they can experience them directly. We hear from people all the time at trade shows. We received your sample in the mail. It was so nice to receive it, and it's an old-fashioned technique, but it still works if you can do it.
Mhm. It's nice to get first class mail, you know.
Yeah.
There's still something special about that. How have each one of you handled figuring out your pricing model?
can start. So basically, going back to like how do you find your target market is I did a lot of farmers markets, craft shows, all kinds of, buyer markets where, customers came to buy. And through that, I learned who my target market was. And it was by asking questions. So it wasn't just like who it was coming to purchase the soap, it's who were you buying it for? And through that is how I learned that my soap would be a good fit in the gifting space. And then I figured out what I would need to make to be profitable to make money on wholesaling to be able to offer buyers that keystone pricing that they're looking for. And keystone pricing would be 50% off of your suggested retail price. And to do that, I had to raise my price by more than 10% per bar on the retail level to hit my target, keystone pricing. And I was so nervous about it at first. And nobody even batted an eye. Nobody ever said anything about it. None of my existing customers never said anything about it. No, so don't be afraid to raise your prices. I mean, people raise prices all the time. Our suppliers raise prices all the time. It's just how the economy works. And just don't undersell yourself.
And certainly right now, people are not going to be surprised if your price goes up a little bit.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good advice, Joy. Anything else, Alan, you'd want to add to that? How you figured out your pricing model?
In terms of the pricing, I also followed the Keystone model, although I do both wholesale and direct retail, which a lot of people when I was starting out told me not to do. Um, but I've been doing it for 25 years and it worked for me. But we did start with Keystone pricing, and then uh, over the years, we probably went a little bit above that, just for the sweat equity that we'd built in. When you pay your dentist to do a filling, you're not paying for the filling material and the electricity. You're paying for the education
Yeah,
that the
absolutely.
dentist went through. I put in a little bit of that as well as a cushion. Keystone pricing is very effective. It's kind of what people expect, but don't be a slave to it, because if you're losing money on each one, you can't make it up in volume.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. How about you, Michael?
Operating the e-commerce websites, we wanted the products to be accessible. We've made products in the past for companies that we're blown away by what they charge and can get through their branding and their approach to the marketplace. But we wanted to be, where you'd expect to be for soaps, deodorants, lotions, that type of thing. So it's really us thinking about it at a retail level first, and then we're offering same Keystone pricing on the products we make. The exception would be we are getting into branded products like soap dishes, fishing towels, oyster knives that are made by other companies. And we can't do Keystone pricing on those because of what we're paying to have those products made for us. But otherwise, we have a MAP pricing policy also, which is nice for our customer base, which is independent wholesalers or retailers. We require that they're not able to advertise the products for any less than what we are selling the products for on our retail websites. Everyone seems to appreciate that. It keeps a level playing field, and it's not that hard to enforce. If we see someone who is violating MAP, which again is an advertising issue only, they can sell it for whatever they want, more or less in their store. They just can't advertise it through any means for less than what it's on our website. If they do that and they try to process their next PO, then we don't take the order.
Great advice. Great advice. I know that many on the call right now are more on the creator side than the business side. We all love to make things. I think this group is a wonderful group of makers. And sometimes the challenge is the business side of things. In your own experience, how have you worked out that balance of maintaining that creativity while running a business.
I'm a lousy businessman.
Same.
It's good to be honest and know
I get
yourself.
I get by, but I am absolutely sure that I've only scratched the surface on the market and the profitability of my product. And that is because I'm a creative type. It's just my nature.
Mhm.
I can't devote all of my time to both things. I suppose I do occasionally call in a consultant,
Mhm.
like for sharpening the SEO performance of my website, things like that. And
Mhm.
sometimes that pays off, and sometimes it doesn't pay off. But in terms of how to balance it, you get a lot of advice for as cheap as you can if you're more of a creative person. But just remember also that you're not in this. I mean, I'm going to presume this, okay? You're not in this to get rich. You're in this as a life choice. And so maybe squeezing the most money out of your business is not at the top of your list. Maybe it is. But maybe having the satisfaction of creating something that is appreciated and does earn you a living is higher on the list.
Mhm.
So
Well said. How about you, Joy?
I'd say you might be in it to maybe try to get rich. And by that I
you
mean
might
if you're
be.
trying to build your company to sell it. I also am more of a creative, but I am okay with business things, and I understand, and it might take me twice or three, four times as long as somebody else to get to a certain number, but I'll get there eventually. So the way I kind of balance that is when I first started out with business, and one of the biggest things for me that was such a time suck for me was social media. And even though you could be creative with it, I just wasn't good at it. And so my very first hire when I could afford to pay somebody else was to get over my social media. And it was one of the smartest decisions that I made because of that, I was found on Instagram by Whole Foods Market. And now, we're in almost 20 stores. And that came about just through Instagram. And then as I grew a little more and there was more challenges, like I needed somebody to maintain our Whole Foods relationship, which is a job on its own. I actually took on a partner. And for me, that made sense because I'm producing. I can't be everywhere. It's not like I'm buying things from China and I'm just passing, them along to the end consumer. I have to be in the studio and I'm making soap and I'm working with the employees every day. So I did take out a partner and I gave a small piece of my company away because I wanted that person to have a vested interest in what they were doing. I didn't want to just bring on somebody that I was going to give a paycheck to. I wanted them to also help to grow the business with an end goal in mind. Within 10 years, we want to have some sort of an exit plan to hopefully sell our business.
Mhm.
So.
Awesome, Joy. That's great. How about you, Michael?
Well, I'm sort of a split persona. I started my career as a CPA and a CFO for various companies. So the business side and the numbers and all of that is a very natural part of my background and training. But I'm very much a creative. I developed our most recent brand, Mackenzie's Fisherman, because of my passion as a recreational fisherman, and I wanted to do something to directly um, be involved in this industry and this pastime that I really love. So all of the graphic design and branding, I was very, very instrumental in working with the graphic designer. I do find that the business aspects usually take over the week between, particularly with our private label customers. One thing I've learned to do, particularly as the kids have gotten older and they're no longer in the house, is Sundays I carve out 2 or 3 hours every Sunday where I'm looking to come up with some new creative idea. I'd like to scour Pinterest, Amazon, Etsy, YouTube. And my goal when I sit down is to say, okay, what can I come up with as an idea that I can implement for the business? Some new packaging, maybe some new product idea, something creative that will contribute to the business. And by doing it on a Sunday, I don't feel like I'm taking away from the business in the normal course. So that's just a little trick I've used, and it carves out some time that I don't feel guilty about taking away from the business.
Awesome. Great advice. Let's shift now to a little bit more about how getting ready for a trade show. So I'd love to hear from each one of you. What's your process for when do you start and when do you map out your season? And tell me about your how you get ready. Joy, you want to start?
I make a checklist. And it's the same checklist that I use every time. So down to the brooms and pens and all those other things, processors for payments. So definitely checklists help. I would also say something that's helped for me is that we made little postcards that kind of give all of our terms and, questions and contact information. And with my business, making soap, it's easy for me to be able to hand out samples. So I make a little bag that has my postcard in it and, 5 different samples of soaps, and I just hand that to people. And it works really, really well for us. I know not everybody is in the position to be able to give out samples of their product. But if you are, you have something similar that you could do, I really suggest doing it. People love to get freebies.
No, I think that goes back to Michael's earlier piece of the power of sampling, no matter whether at a trade show or through direct mail. So, Michael, how about you? How do you get ready?
No, I agree. You want to remove the stress of preparing for the trade show by number one, preparing an abstract of, where, when, hotels, airlines, car rentals. I mean, all the details, just get them on a piece of paper. I find that to be very, very helpful to removing any stress leading up to the show. And we also use a checklist. It's between 180 to 100 items, literally paper clips, staplers, the card swipe device, everything that you want to go down that list, and just make sure you don't get to the show set up and find out you're missing something that they're small items, but they're all critical.
Absolutely. How about you, Alan?
It's a two-phase process. In the short term, I always make sure that I'm prepared as in advance and packed to go as many days before I have to leave as possible, so I can spend the last day going through my checklist and making sure there isn't anything that I missed. I don't want to be, up in the middle of the night before, jamming stuff into the vehicle. So I do work from a checklist. I have a duplicate set of everything that I need to run the business in my luggage as well as in the kit that I bring, which is kind of it's like a bug out bag. I put everything back in. I don't unpack any of this between shows for fear of leaving something behind. All the little bits and pieces, staplers, card readers, et cetera, et cetera. I keep that all on hand at all times. As I said, I pack as early as possible. And but the other part of the prep process starts for me the day, for example, with NEM, the day after the show closes, when I do a little bit of a mental inventory of what I would like to change for next year. And I start that right away. Now, in my case, I'm a little hyper booth design focused. So I've had probably a different booth every year for the past 12 years, which is not something I suggest, although you should stay fluid with that. We can get back to that. But I start planning next year's booth the day after, say, NEM. So preparing in advance is absolutely the best thing that you can do.
I love your idea of starting or leaving yourself that buffer of that last day just to give yourself that a little bit of breathing room. And so it's not that panic, then, a few hours realizing.
And also to spend some time with my wife or with my grandkids or something like that when I'm not on the road, So rather than otherwise, I might as well be gone the day before as well, but I'm not. I'm with them. Everything's done. I'm calm. It's all good.
And how do each one of you decide which trade shows you're doing? How do you evaluate? Joy, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I love NEM. I have to say my very favorite. I think everybody, Greg, Stefa, everybody, they're just so personable. You can approach them, ask them questions, and I think all of you have probably started to realize that if you've gone through your webinars and such here. But lost my train of thought there.
No,
But
just how you pick.
yes.
How do you
So,
pick?
so my suggestion would be to go to a show first. I mean, you probably are already on this webinar because you've already signed up and you're going to go there. But if there's anything else you're thinking of going to, I would visit first. I would talk to the other, makers or stores and see what they're selling and what kind of buyers are there, and just kind of check things out beforehand. Reach out to somebody that might have exhibited there and get some information that way.
Love that. No, that's one of our top encouraging, like come walk the show and talk to anybody else so they get, eyes wide open because it's a big investment. It's a big investment. Michael, how about you? How do you make your choices?
Well, first of all, I'll say we love trade shows. We love getting out of our daily routine here at the facility. Um, love talking to people about the products. I wish there was more quality trade shows to attend. New England Made is a must do on our list. It's right in our backyard. It's all of the folks that are coming there as retailers are prime candidates for our products. So that's a no-brainer. Beyond that, we've tried most of the national shows and generally been disappointed in terms of the foot traffic. I think there's a lot of the shows are challenged and becoming more challenged in that regard. So it's getting harder. But I would honestly do a trade show a month if it was up to me. I think that they're incredibly beneficial for a whole host of reasons. And but there just aren't enough quality trade shows out there to do, as far as I'm concerned.
How about you, Alan?
Well, at first it was sort of a hit or miss thing. I was sort of trying to you find your customer this in the same way. You find your customer, you find your trade show. Currently, I actually only do one trade show, and it's this one, which I wouldn't miss. I
Thanks.
mean, it's great.
Thanks,
For one
Alan.
thing, by the way, this is the best, wetlands, salt marsh breeding ground for new businesses entering wholesale that there is, and I'd put money on that.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks, Alan.
this is the best place to start. Even if you weren't selling in this region, this is a great place to start. Um, it's uh, I pick it based on my return, my experiences. I used to do more shows. I've done larger ones. I've done other products in the past. I've done national size shows and was very disappointed, which is not to say that that's not something you should try. It may have just been my experience. But in general, what's been happening these days is the traffic is in fact down, as Michael says. And also, if you're a small business in a small fish in a very, very big pond, you may not get the visibility and the location that works best for you at these huge convention venues. And I know people who've spent a lot of money to go to some of the larger shows and didn't quite get the response that they were hoping for. So bigger is not necessarily better. Targeted for your audience and your demographic is better. And I would choose based on that. But as I said, I only do one trade show right now, and the rest of the shows that I do are retail.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. We're glad you choose us. I know we're at quarter of, so I want to make sure I get all the good stuff. So, what's the best advice for anybody exhibiting at NEM? What do you bring? What mindset do you have to have? Michael, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's obvious that you want your booth to be attractive, inviting, well lit. Sometimes I'm amazed by folks that don't spend a few extra dollars to either bring or rent lighting that's going to make the booth attractive. That's pretty basic. I'd ask, is there any way you can sample or demonstrate your product at the booth rather than just be able to talk about it? That's a benefit if you can do it. Collateral material should be up to date, plenty of copies. You don't want to worry at all about giving away your sell sheet too liberally at the show. We just make sure we have more than we could possibly use. Um, is there a sample you can give your customers to take away so you're more memorable after they leave the show? People, I think they go home and they're just so much information overload. How are you going to stand out so they think to act on their interaction with you from the show? And I think really important is to have an effective method for capturing prospect contact information at the show. We have these little how can we get in touch cards, which we ask folks to complete. Sometimes that happens naturally during the conversation, and sometimes it doesn't. But if there's two of us in the booth, which there always is, whoever's engaging the customer, the other person's responsible for collecting their information off of their name tag card, because one of the most important assets you're going to come away from the show is the quality prospect lead list. That's critically important. And if you don't have an effective means of capturing that information, you're leaving something valuable on the table.
That is such good advice, and I hope we have a minute or two to talk about what each one of you do for follow-up, because that is really how you get the value from the investment that you make. Joy, how about you? Best advice?
Definitely engage your buyers.
Mhm.
Try not to ask yes or no questions. So something I like to ask is, what kind of shop do you have? What season are you shopping for? It's very easy for us to kind of guide buyers through our booth. We also do a lot of seasonal items. So we go there with the intention of taking orders and getting in stores. And so I can't tell you how many stores we've gotten into when buyers were not even looking for soap. So we kind of walk them through and ask them about their buyers because they know you don't know. So we have a Pride soap. Do you have a big LGBT community that shops at your shop? This might be a good fit for you. You buy the beach. I have a beach soap. So they want you to help them to do their shopping. So one thing that we did, as the trade shows go on, you get better and better and you adjust your booth, is we brought a lighted shelf that we put to the back of our booth that we now build their order. So they can see every soap that in the collection they've put together. Do we want to add different colors? Do we want to add different scents? Do we need more masculine soaps? And we just help them to build their orders.
So smart. I hope everybody wrote that one down, Joy.
Yeah.
Super smart.
It took me a while to figure it out. So if you do it, right off the rip, then you'll be in good shape. But they really want you to tell them.
Mhm.
They're looking to you for guidance on your products because you know them best. And so if you engage them and ask them about their buyers, that'll help you do that.
I know. I think people forget that wholesale really is so much of a partnership between you and the buyer to help them be successful. And your expertise in knowing what sells in your line and sharing that with the buyer, can go a long way to building that trusting relationship. How about you, Alan? Best
There's
advice?
an old saying among inventors, and you may have heard it, build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. It's not true. They absolutely will not. You have to come to them. And just attending the trade show is not enough. Let me go back to very quickly what Michael said about lighting. Nothing is more important than lighting. You can have a crappy booth
Amen.
and you don't have a lot of money to spend on your booth, don't worry about it. You can be presentable in your booth. You can light it really well. And light is literally energy. And
Mhm.
your energy and the energy of your booth is what's going to sell your product to people who aren't already familiar with it. You do not sit down. Do not sit down and don't be on your phone. Don't be on your phone. Stand up. Your passion is for your product is contagious. And you have to evince passion not for the customer buying your product. They'll take care of that. You evince passion for your product. You're excited about your product, and then you're excited to share that with them, and then they'll get excited. Well-lit booth, it can be complicated, it can be simple, whatever you feel like doing. Stand up, be enthusiastic. Don't go into the aisle and pull people out because that's the worst thing you can do.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people who do that. As enthusiastic and excited as you may get, don't grab people out of the aisle because you just really want to tell them about it. Be available for them. Be right there. Um, Be well dressed because it shows that you respect them and yourself. Well lit, booth, do what you can do. You know, it would be better if you can do more than just a 6 foot folding table, you know, with a tablecloth. You need to be a little better than that. But even if that's all you can afford, good signage on foam core or banners can make up for a complicated booth, you know, if you don't want to do that. Um, but your energy is and good lighting are the best things that you can bring. And of course, the whole thing about capturing about information that you can follow up and all that, that's already been said. I won't reiterate that, but that's my take.
I hope that everybody like rewinds this and like listens to that stream of nuggets, Alan, again, because there was a lot in that. We require lighting just because we know it's so important on the selling, you know, just highlighting that product. But I really appreciate that you mentioned the energy, because when I walk down the aisles, then you can really pick up who has good energy. And I know the buyers do the same thing. And there are some that are sort of a vortex of despair that you sort of naturally, you know, avoid, because you can feel whether they're stressed about, you know, will I be successful? Will I, you know, or they're so introverted and they haven't been able to pull in a peer that is more extroverted that, you know, will bring them. And that's just such a shame, because their product may be fantastic, but that energy that they expend from their booth really is so contagious. And you know, you see people walking in, as Joy mentioned, not even looking for soap or whatever, and they walk out with, you know, a long slip. So all of that is terrific advice.
Yeah, lighting, comfortable shoes, and caffeine.
Those are all perfect trifecta. I know that we just have a couple more minutes. We're at 2:52. So, Whitney, I know I just wanted to finish with one about the follow-up, because I know the follow-up is really the other integral part. So before we get to a question or two at the end, is there anything you'd throw out there as far as follow-up advice? Any of you on the call?
I'm sorry. I think I'd just say, you know, get excited and really work the show. Have fun, and meet the exhibitors around you, because we find that we make new friends at the show. We share a lot of information. We just came back from Atlanta Mart in January, and our neighbor, we've had 2 or 3 meetings since then where we're teaching him about certain aspects of the business that he didn't know about, and he's involving us in some things that we wanted to get involved in that didn't have the expertise. So I just think that the trade shows are incredibly valuable for bringing back things that you never would have happened if you didn't go, if you didn't leave the office.
Anything else, Joy or Alan, that you would add to your follow-up before we jump into a question or two?
No.
Okay. Whitney, is there anything in the, I haven't been watching the chat. Is there anything that we should do for Q&A?
Yeah, a question, we get this a lot. How do first-time vendors fare at this show? Should we expect to write orders at our first show? Are buyers looking to see if we have staying power before they place an order?
Yes, both.
Yes, I would say definitely go with the intention of getting new customers or new buyers. You need to be in that mindset. If you go there just thinking that, oh, I'm just going to check it out and see if anybody wants to approach me, then I don't feel you'll be successful. You need to go there with a good mindset to take orders and get the money while you're there. Get the money, guys. There's been a lot of people who said to me, oh, I'll call you later, or my card's with somebody else. And I've said, okay, can you just circle back with it? And then we can take your order, you know, and get that to you quickly. But definitely get the money at the show, and intend to take orders. So also bring order sheets that are nice and easy, that you can organize people's information and orders and such.
If you can offer an incentive for them to pay you on the spot, free shipping, some sort of discount, some freebie of some sort, it helps.
That's great. And we have a show special board that we put up, and buyers definitely flock to that to see, is somebody throwing, it may be, order 300 or 500 at the show, and I'll throw in free shipping or an extra whatever. So that extra sort of show special can close the deal at the show. Anything else, Whitney?
Yeah, and I'll just comment on that as far as how do first-time vendors fare at this show. Yeah, I mean, to Joy's point, expect to write orders, but it's not uncommon that you might not. And that goes back to the importance of following up with any of your leads afterwards. They may intend to place an order, but they forgot about you in the hubbub of everything else. So just make sure that you do that follow-up. This is a question, I think Peter answered some of this, but I've worked on both sides, wholesale and retail, and I've found that many retailers need more of a markup, more like 2.2. It seems like more and more people who are wholesaling aren't true wholesalers, and I'm wondering if I am just behind the times.
Not sure I understand the reference to 2.2.
I think at 2.2, okay, well, maybe if that's not clear, we'll just
I think
move
it
on
was,
because I don't know the answer
Yeah.
to that.
I think it
How would
was,
someone access or form a focus group?
Yeah, I've done that. Has anyone else in this group done that? Focus groups?
I
Yeah,
think it's a great
I
idea.
did that. We took out a couple of, local newspaper ads. We also used some friends. We had friends of friends. Somebody did a couple of connections away from us to find strangers who would be willing for a small compensation of some sort to do it. But you could put up you can put something online with social media. You could put up a sign in the local Starbucks or whatever. The only important thing is that it's easy for them to get to you, and that you have nothing to do with it when it happens.
That's great. All righty. Well, we are at 2:57, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I, first of all, just really want to thank Alan, Joy, and Michael for sharing your expertise. I know there's a ton of great information that if anybody pays attention to this, will make their trade show experience, whether it's their first or their 15th, much more beneficial and much more valuable. And I know buyers always share with us how much they appreciate the camaraderie and the generosity and spirit that people at NEM share with them. I know you guys are sort of shining stars in that area. So thank you for that. And also thank you to the SBDC for helping businesses along. They're such great partners. Check them out, even if you think you don't need it. They probably can help you with something that you don't, but we're just looking forward to seeing everybody at the show. We hope it's a great one for all. And if people have more questions, then reach on out. But thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.